This case is one of the most bizarre cases I've seen this year. It started out of seemingly nothing and just escalated so fast. Before you could blink, 9 shots had already been fired and 2 lives had been lost, with the third eventually being lost as well. This is a case that involves 2 grown men, both of whom are 47 years old, and it plays out in the Flatbush district of New York in the United States of America, where a man has unfortunately ended up unaliving his neighbor and his son due to a noise complaint he has been filing against them for about 6 times. Now, this case goes back from 2018 when Mr. Jason Pass, 47 years old, who lives in an apartment complex with his neighbors, started making this complaint that Mr. Bladimy Mathurin and his family have been making so much noise, and because they live above him, it disturbs his sleep, his focus, and his livelihood, to the point that, per reports gathered, as this noise allegedly goes on, Jason Pass, who lives beneath Mathurin and his family, would be hitting the ceiling, signaling that they cool down the noise, whilst Mathurin would also be stamping his floor, which is Jason Pass's ceiling, signaling that he should be able to accommodate the noise because it comes with where he is situated. So this had become tenuous over the years. It started from 2018 through to now 2023. Jason Pass had filed a noise complaint 6 times on the 311 number against Mathurin and his family, and according to sources, they were due to sit down for a mediation, but it never happened. Now, on this fateful day, which was the 31st of October 2023, things would come to a head when Jason Pass made his way to the family of Mathurin, who at this time was also at home with his family. Now, the altercation started with Jason Pass coming to the apartment building where Mathurin and his family were, and then Mathurin's wife coming out seemingly to have a conversation with Jason Pass. At this point, Mathurin also stepped out and also had a conversation with Jason Pass. Although the CCTV footage does not give audio, you can see clearly that there was tension between them because this issue goes back quite a number of years. So it's not surprising at all that in all this, when they squared off, they didn't even remember that there was a camera. They didn't even remember that there were other people around. They didn't even remember that there is more to life than what they are going through. And maybe being 47 years old each, they should have looked for a more matured approach to solving this problem. But unfortunately, Bladimy Mathurin and Jason Pass did not go down the path of peace. Instead, things escalated very, very fast. Now, this was what happened. You would see in the footage that the confrontation got so heated, that at a point, Bladimy rushes back to his apartment and he gets a weapon, which is a scissors, it appears. But look at the demeanor of Jason Pass. Jason Pass seems so calm and collected. Why? Because he knows he has a gun on him. And it turns out eventually that, unknown to Bladimy Mathurin, who had actually gone for that scissors thinking he had the upper hand in whatever could ensue, be it an altercation or something else, he was actually going to find himself coming up short because, as it will turn out later, he had brought a scissors to a gunfight. And unfortunately, you would see that his wife comes in to pull him away. This is very critical. She was trying to de-escalate the situation, but Bladimy Mathurin was not having any bit of that. And you can see his wife succeeds in pulling him away a bit, and he turns his back to Jason Pass. At this point, the threat is gone. But then he comes back again, and before he could say Jack, you see that Jason Pass pulls out his weapon, and even at this point, you will see that Bladimy Mathurin turns and tries to walk away. So there was no imminent threat at this point. Jason Pass didn't have to discharge his weapon, but unfortunately he did. He discharged his weapon, and by this time, the 27-year-old stepson of Bladimy Mathurin was also around, observing what was going on. He didn't show any sign of aggression like his stepfather was doing. He didn't show anything that seemed to suggest that he was sort of fueling the altercation, or he was reaching for a weapon, or he seemed to want to exercise any form of aggression towards Jason Pass. But unfortunately, after Jason Pass discharged his weapon and took down Bladimy Mathurin, by reflex, I think, his stepson by name Chinwai Mode was trying to also duck out of the way, but he ducked in the direction of Jason Pass, and Jason Pass unfortunately extended his shooting spree to the stepson, Chinwai Mode, and unalived him as well. So just like that, an altercation or a disagreement or noise making had simply escalated now to become something that was bordering on life and death. I think this situation could have been easily avoided. Now, let's pause on this and see the debate that is ongoing out there. There are some who are arguing that Jason Pass gunned down, or should I say unalived, Mathurin out of self-defense. But hey, I don't buy it. Let's look at the law governing self-defense. This is what it says. The force you apply to defend yourself should be applicable or should be commensurate to the force that was being exerted on you for which you felt the need to defend yourself. So, by extension of this, Mathurin came at Jason Pass with a scissors. Well, someone would say that scissors was at a point being pointed at Jason Pass. He would have felt threatened, but at the point he actually withdrew his weapon and decided to discharge, he wasn't in any immediate threat. At that point, Mathurin had actually backed off and was seemingly walking away. So there was no immediate threat for which Jason Pass would have had to discharge his weapon and discharge it severally, to the point he actually walked over and in an execution sort of style just put out the final shot to end it all. So I don't agree it was self-defense. Not at all. Especially with the fact that he extended his discharge of weapon to the stepson of Bladimy Mathurin, Chinwai Mode. And this point tells me that this guy had had enough. He had reached his breaking point or his boiling point, and he came with an intention in mind. Somebody would also want to support the self-defense plea or argument with the fact that looking at the two men, although they are all of the same age, 47 years old, you would actually notice that Bladimy Mathurin was more well-built and bigger and taller and probably maybe more stronger than Jason Pass. So somebody will say in terms of strength, Mathurin might probably have an advantage over Jason Pass. But mind you, they never squared off at all physically to have a physical altercation. It was more about exchange of words and getting into each other's faces. And there was already this bad blood, so it's not surprising it escalated this fast. But to the extent of Jason Pass, who is reported to be a former corrections officer, to now get to the point of having to draw a weapon when the threat itself had actually diffused, and then discharge the weapon, and by so doing end two lives just like that. I think that was an overkill. It didn't end there. Now, it also turns out that this weapon in itself is not even registered. So it's unclear how Jason Pass got this weapon, who it belongs to, and even what he did after that, because the story didn't actually end there. Jason Pass fled. He fled the scene through the elevator calmly. That alone tells you it's not self-defense. This guy came with probably a premeditated outcome that if these guys get to this point, I'm ready. If you want the smoke, I'm ready. I'll give you the smoke. It looks like that was this guy's disposition, because he could have just ended with the verbal altercation. Now, after doing this, he left calmly through the elevator and exited the building. So he was now a wanted man. But guess what? It didn't take long before the police caught up with him on the 44th Street in Bath Beach around 7:10 a.m. the next day. That's the 1st of November. Now, the police were looking out for him already. There was a bolo out on him and his car, and he was driving his car at this time when the police saw him and ran his license plate, only to realize that he is being sought after with regards to that crime. So they signaled him to stop, and he stopped. But Jason Pass, at this point in time, didn't have the weapon, that's the gun, with him. It turns out that he rather had a knife with him. And as is the standard practice, the police signaled Jason Pass to drop the knife. This led to a standoff between Jason Pass and the police. And this standoff allegedly lasted for about 15 straight minutes. So within these 15 minutes, a lot happened. According to eyewitnesses, Jason Pass seemed a bit off. He seemed a bit irrational. He seemed like he wasn't sure of his next line of action. And he is reported to have basically said something like, "What's happening today is not going to end well." So you could tell this guy was having thoughts running through his mind. Mind you, he already has a body count of 2. So definitely, if he hasn't taken a life before, this will be weighing down on him. And now coupled with the fact that he's a wanted man and he's now coming face to face with the police. So he would be thinking, I'm sure, trying to process, what is my best way out? Do I surrender and face prosecution for these 2 lives I ended? Or do I consider something else? So the police kept shouting instructions at him, asking that he drops the knife and surrenders. But Jason Pass was not having any of that, because eventually, although the police gave him so much time and allegedly enough opportunity to surrender, he rather ended up charging at the police with the knife. At which point, of course, per their standard procedure, they had to neutralize him, and by so doing, Jason Pass also became unalived and passed on. So just like that, a disagreement that started 5 years ago about noise making in a Flatbush apartment building had now escalated within 24 hours after 5 years to the point where 2 people had lost their life, and a third person who had taken those 2 people's lives had also lost his life at the hands of the police. That is how quickly chaos can visit you wherever you are. So it hasn't ended though, because the police are still running investigations. They need to find the weapon, the gun that Jason Pass used on Mathurin, and also run other investigations with regards to where it is in the first place, since it's not registered, how he even got it, did someone aid and abet him, because if so, that person will also have questions to answer with regards to conspiracy and other things. And unfortunately for the widow of Mathurin, he was the breadwinner. He actually worked 2 jobs, one of which involved he being a bus driver and another allegedly an Uber driver. And he has been lost now. He leaves behind his wife and their 10-year-old daughter, and she's devastated because Mathurin was the breadwinner of the house, and with him deceased, she doesn't know how they are going to survive. I think this case is so tragic. I believe it should pull the 2 families together. The family of Jason Pass and the family of Mathurin should pull together. I think that would help with the healing, that each member of their family helped escalate this, unfortunately, but although Jason Pass took it over the board, I think that the 2 families should make peace on behalf of their relatives who have passed in this altercation. That is my thinking. That is the only way they can make peace and move on. And I hope they consider something along that line, because already Mathurin's sister at the time, Jason Pass's sister at the time of the incident was trying to claim self-defense on behalf of Jason Pass. So it looks like she was trying to look out for her brother. But unfortunately, this was before he would also end up losing his life at the hands of the police. So this case is not over actually. The fact that the perpetrator and the victims have both passed doesn't mean it's over. The investigations are still continuing, and that's the beautiful thing about police investigations in the more advanced countries. They try their best to leave no stone unturned. RIP to Mathurin, RIP to Jason Pass, and RIP to the stepson of Mathurin, Chinwai Mode. Pray that they find peace at wherever they are, irrespective of how they got there. And given that the 3 of them have passed, if the afterlife is real, like they say, then technically you could have Jason Pass and Bladimy Mathurin actually being neighbors again in that afterlife. What are they going to do then? Are there still going to be noise complaints? I don't know. But I think the moral of the lesson, the moral of the story is that we should try our possible best to de-escalate some of these things. If you go getting into people's faces with weapons, you don't know how they are going to react. But that is not an excuse for Jason Pass, because he also had the responsibility to measure his reaction to be sure that he's not going excessively overboard. But he didn't. I hope lessons will be learned from this. This is how come I need you to share my videos. These are things that could happen at any point in time, at anywhere, given the right circumstances to fuel such incidents. You could tell that these are probably middle income or low income earners, and they may have a bit of frustration and financial frustration around their lives, maybe, but generally you could see that these guys were dealing with things in their lives, and having the patience and empathy to an extent to deal with some of these complaints was just not there. Let's all try to be a bit more respectful to each other and our neighbors, empathize more, and where we are wrong, be sincere and polite enough to apologize. If these things had played out, maybe, just maybe, we may still have Jason Pass, Bladimy Mathurin, and his stepson, Chinwai Mode, still with us on this earth. RIP to them, and I wish their families the strength to move on. Share the video, turn on post notifications, leave your comments in the comment section. I'll catch you on the next one. Keep an eye out and stay safe out there.